It was a moment in history we'll never forget. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the passing of Queen Elizabeth, the end of a life of service. Now, shortly I'll speak with royal contributor Victoria Arbiter, but first we look back at the loss of Her Majesty. For one of the most famous figures in the world, the notice of her death was a simple one. A traditional post on display at Buckingham Palace, leading to a global outpouring of grief. Her reign, over 70 years, the longest of any British monarch.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Breaking news from Scotland, here at Balmoral, where Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has passed away at the age of 96.
The Queen is dead. At 96, Elizabeth II is gone.
The final images of Her Majesty with a beaming smile 2 days earlier, welcoming Britain's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, to her Scottish castle. The Queen's two eldest children, Charles and Anne, were with her at Balmoral when she died. A procession of other senior royals had scrambled to be there. Prince William drove his uncles, Andrew and Edward, and the Countess of Wessex to join the rest of the family. But they were too late. Prince Harry rushed to see his grandmother, visibly upset, more than an hour after her death was announced. Our Parliament suspended, honouring a head of state who dealt with 16 Australian Prime Ministers.
Today marks the end of an era, the close of the second Elizabethan age.
Upon the Queen's death, her eldest son immediately became King Charles III, Camilla, the Queen Consort. He was formally proclaimed the new monarch in London 2 days later.
I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathise with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered.
Royal protocol was followed to the exact minute in the moments that followed. The Queen's coffin driven to Edinburgh, where mourners paid tribute. Then to Buckingham Palace for the final time. Media from across the globe descended outside as funeral plans were laid out. Meanwhile, rare unity. Prince William and Prince Harry appeared together for the first time in 2 years, along with wives Kate and Meghan.
It just was a nice feeling seeing them all together.
It's just so nice to see all four together.
Bye everyone, thank you so much. Thank you everyone.
Healing that didn't last, the brothers no longer on speaking terms. Drawn on a gun carriage, Her Majesty's coffin was taken to Westminster Hall. There she lay in state for more than 4 days. 250,000 paid their respects, sometimes waiting 24 hours in what was dubbed the Great Queue. A poignant salute as the Queen's 4 children stood guard. Then, the final farewell. The royal family, joined by leaders and dignitaries, honouring Her Majesty in a state funeral at Westminster Abbey. Before a grand procession through London, then onto Windsor Castle. A smaller, more personal congregation said goodbye. Her Majesty's lone piper marking the end of her service. Queen Elizabeth II was finally home. Royal commentator Victoria Arbiter joins me now. Victoria, good to speak to you again here on The Latest. What do you remember about the moment you found out that the Queen had died?
Gosh, Michael, well, it feels almost foolish to say this now, but it was one of just total shock. It had only been 2 days earlier that we'd seen her at Balmoral greeting her new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Yes, she looked frail, but I think I, along with so many others, was just guilty of thinking she would be with us forever.
We were both reporting from London together in those days of mourning. I think we're probably unlikely to see anything like that again, do you think?
Absolutely. From the moment the Queen's hearse left Balmoral Castle to make its journey to Edinburgh, the arrangements were just meticulous in terms of their execution. Then when she made her journey to London, the Queen was very cognizant of the fact that she needed to be seen to be believed. It was a phrase she said around 1970, and I think she recognised that that was really going to be true in death, that there would need to be a symbol that people saw. And I was there when her hearse arrived at Buckingham Palace, having left Scotland. It was quite late, it was dark, it was raining, but there was, as the hearse came along, it was this beacon of light, and the Queen had partly joined in the design of that hearse. It had expansive windows, the glass roof, and it really was quite jarring to see, but also such a beautiful sight as it made its way through London.
Do we know how the royal family is going to mark this anniversary?
Well, in a similar vein to his mother, the King will be marking it privately. The Queen used to spend Accession Day at Sandringham, where her father passed in 1952, and the King is planning to spend his Accession Day in Balmoral. People have often said in the past, how does the monarch celebrate Accession Day? But it really isn't a celebration because, of course, the accession comes upon the death of a parent. So we're unlikely to see the King and Queen. William and Kate, we understand, are going to be leading public commemorations, and the bells will toll at Westminster Abbey in honour of the Queen.
Well, Victoria, we know that King Charles obviously has been monarch for a year. There's an interesting statistic out tonight that he's actually worked more days in his first year in the job than his mother did. Admittedly, very different generations, different forms of transport and getting around. But does that show that he's hit the ground running?
I certainly think he has hit the ground running, Michael. In part, it's because he knew that his critics were going to be waiting in the wings. But more importantly, I think, given the longevity of the Queen's reign, he recognised that he needed to be out and about. The people needed reassurance. They needed that sense of stability and continuity for which the royal family is famed.
The anniversary was marked in our parliament here in Australia today. Let's just take a listen to what the Deputy Prime Minister had to say about King Charles.
In the beginning of his reign, we have come to understand that he is unique because in the entirety of British history, he is the monarch about whom his thoughts and his ideas we know the most.
Yeah, Richard Marles there referring to King Charles as an ideas man. That's interesting too from a Republican-leaning government that we have at the moment. But do you think that's how the King is perceived in public, as an ideas man?
I think it's definitely a fair point, and really I think that's been decided simply because, as the longest-serving heir apparent in history, he is the monarch that we know the most about. But when we look at those ideas, all of them are very forward-thinking. But at the same time, he has not come into the position as a radical reformer. I think he recognises that the country does need continuity and stability. He recognises the country's need for tradition, but at the same time, we will start to see slight changes.
All right, look, it's been a while since we've spoken to you, but good to talk to you on this anniversary, Victoria Arbiter. Thank you.